I'm Abe Maynard, and I am a former personal trainer at Equinox. I was there for about 7 years. In 2019, I was nominated as Personal Trainer of the Year for the whole company. Spent my entire childhood and upbringing as a competitive skier and athlete. I think I'm well addicted to sports and activity. Current active Jiu-Jitsu competitor, and I help clients make life change through habit decisions and strength and conditioning. And then on top of that, host a podcast, comes out every Tuesday called the Mayn Idea Podcast. And I started a website called getskisystem.com that is strength and conditioning specific for people preparing for the winter or trips in the winter. So it's a little bit of an unpopular answer, but it's the truth. And no matter what side of the spectrum you fall on in how you perceive sleep and its ability to impact your life, the facts are that more sleep is better for everybody. And whenever I work with a client, the very first thing that we try to do is establish some sort of new behaviors around sleep to drive a couple things: sleep quality, which is how well you're sleeping when you're sleeping; sleep quantity, which is getting the right amount of hours of sleep for your body. The majority of the studies that I've been exposed to through like Dr. Jennifer Martin at UCLA, who runs the sleep study department there, she was a guest on my podcast when we talked at length about this, is that 7.5 hours is pretty much unanimously agreed upon through sleep scientists, practitioners, and doctors that that's the required amount of time to be asleep, sleeping for mental cognition, acuity, clarity, muscle recovery. Pretty much everything that happens in our body that is good for us is going to happen to us while we're asleep. There's the idea that sleep is a waste of time, but we couldn't be further from the truth. So whether you're a high functioning, nonstop, go, go, go Wall Street trader, an entrepreneur, or an artist, no matter who you are, you have a brain, and that brain and that body needs sleep to do all the processes necessary so that you can always be optimizing your performance, whether that's in the office, on the field, whatever. So the very first thing that we want to do is improve sleep quantity, improve sleep quality. And both of those are driven by sleep hygiene, which is what are your behaviors around sleep? So, how do you spend the last 30 minutes when you're getting ready to go to bed? Is it passively spent on an iPad, iPhone, scrolling aimlessly, creating thoughts, emotions, thinking about the future, thinking about the past, reflecting on either things that stimulate us and keep us up? Or is it something that's preparing your body for sleep? Are you someone that watches TV while you're in bed? Again, constant stimulation. Or are you closing the blinds, lighting low light, and trying to get your brain again to think about resting? So these are all things that you can kind of begin to sandwich your evening from stuff you do when you're getting ready to go to bed to the very first things you do when you wake up. And over time, everything is in a linear progression. So it's not that you're like, okay, I'm going to start sleeping next week really well. It will never work like that. It'll take years in some cases to adopt different habits. But it is by and large the biggest adjustment you can make for yourself, whether you're trying to build muscle, because it's mandatory that you sleep to do that. You cannot build muscle if you're not getting adequate sleep. If you want to lose weight, because sleep helps regulate cortisol production, it also allows our body to get into a parasympathetic relaxed state so you can actually lose weight. So it's a big preventative factor for people that are struggling with weight loss or management. And then it's a massive driver in your energy. So if you are not getting enough sleep and then you're trying to go do a bunch of things, eventually your body's just going to mandate that you get more of it. So that expresses in a couple ways. You can get sick, you can get injured. All of these things tend to be a product of lack of recovery combined with high output. So that is to say, sleep is by far the most important thing that you can do for your body in any capacity. So we always start there. Yeah, I think there's a saying in coaching that's, meet me where you're at, or meet your clients where they're at. Is that you're going to get people from all different backgrounds, all different lifestyles, all different ages, and age is an important part, not because of the limitations of age, but because of how much more hardened your habits become the older you get. Like you're much, I mean, you're much more likely to make a change when you're younger than when you're older. in regards to food and exercise. By the time that you're 50, a lot of people, it doesn't mean that you can't do it. It doesn't mean you can't make changes. It's just that a lot of things in your life are set. You have your routine, your house, your job, like the things that you do in a day are most of the time more set up and in stone by that time. So the foods that you eat, you've now been eating them for 50 years, not 20 years. So it becomes more challenging to change those kind of things. So when you get a new client or somebody who's interested, you're going to get all different motivation levels. And that day is very much like New Year's. Excitement is 10 out of 10. Everyone's psyched, whether they just watch an action movie and they saw, they're like, I want to look like Chris Hemsworth because that's incredible. I'm going to get a trainer, and they get a trainer. Or someone goes to their doctor and they're like, you're going to die in 5 years if you don't start exercising. Both those people will come to you, and it's 10 out of 10 motivation. And what happens is if they're not met with the right kind of encouragement and support's a big part of that, then that excitement always goes away. The motivation leaves no matter what, every time, no matter who you are, including myself. There's a lot of days where I'm not motivated, but it's the consistency of showing up and doing it anyway, no matter what. And maybe sometimes you need to be handheld through that with a coach, a trainer, a therapist, or something, because consistency beats out motivation 7 days a week. The other challenge is that a lot of times, and this is, I would say, more specific to making changes around food, is that there's a big psychological element that I believe, as a coach who's done this for a long time, is overlooked from a clinical approach. I think that in a perfect world, trainers and actual licensed psychologists need to work together to truly bring about the right change. Because I can talk about motivation and fitness and doing the right thing, and I was an athlete and yada, yada, yada all day, but I'm not academically equipped to understand how to help someone change 35 years of behavior when it really boils down to it. And I think that's a place in this industry where you could bring together psychology and a knowledge of fitness and wellness and activity together to then truly help someone overcome the physical hurdles, but then also these mental hurdles, which are really what start to beat people up over time. Is that you can, maybe you're out the gate and you start making good choices. There's hard wiring that's really hard to change. That's passive. It's like an alcoholic who wants to get sober. There are some people that can just go, I quit, and 12 years later they're sober. It's insane and very unlikely. But what happens to most people is they give it up, motivation's high, and then they think they can have a drink. And it falls apart because the psychological element hasn't been approached properly. And I think, back to your question about, like, how do you approach those two different levels of excitement or motivation, and keep the consistency, and ultimately get them what they're after in the end. And I think respecting the psychological element is a very big part of that. I think that jujitsu is the best teacher you will ever have in your life. And I really mean that from any and all types of people, because it has self-defense and protection to offer people that are not strong enough to protect themselves as is. It offers an ego check for people that think they're strong enough to protect themselves, which is what happened to me. I When I went in and did my first class, it was like a free class. I thought I was like, whatever, I'm a strong guy. This is going to be easy. And I got just handled by someone who was like half my size and twice my age. And it just completely flipped upside down my understanding of who I was at that moment, at like 24 years old. And then I had taken a long break and got back into it. And what I've learned is that it can give people confidence. I've watched it happen. I've seen the most frail, weak person learn how to stand on their 2 feet and feel very comfortable in who they are, oh my God, look at that. Sorry. Oh God. Become confident, and truly change their psychology and belief in who they are. So it's a major builder of self-efficacy. And I think it gives you a little bit of perspective just about the world. Like you are faced with conflict, real conflict, person to person conflict. And what's special about jujitsu is y- everyone is there to make each other better, which is it's a very unique situation that's hard to. I would imagine maybe like wrestling or something like that in high school, or maybe striking, where you want to keep your training partner safe. You truly care about their safety, but you are also trying to get better. So it's this unique environment where you're putting it on the line, but you truly respect it and hope for the best of the other person. So the level of just general respect and appreciation and love for the people around you, it is really unique. I've been in a lot of like team settings, and I've never experienced it like this. So you can have the older, most black belt, just certified killer person, and their sole purpose, their sole point of gratification is to help teach and make other people better. And the most special thing about jujitsu, which I think I have learned to appreciate it more and more and more, especially in the past 5 years, is that no matter who you are, no matter what race, gender, ethnicity, like it literally doesn't matter. All that stuff gets checked at the door, and you are now on the mat. You're part of something. You're all trying to get better, and everyone lets that go. And that's a breath of really fresh air from just the chaos of ideology and everything that people share. So to be able to go in somewhere and know that, like, no matter who the person to the right or left of you is, you're just part of something that is completely removed from the public square. It feels